I gave this book, Valencia and Valentine by Suzy Krause, 5 stars on Storygraph. But what the hell does that even mean? I go there and I look at the list, there's a lot of 5 stars, but there's 3 stars and even some 1 stars, and it drives me nuts. It's gotten to the point where I don't know what a 5-star rating even means. Like, I've given this book 5 stars, Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. I've also given this book 5 stars, Venomous Lumpsucker by Ned Bowman. Would I equate these as just as good or 2 of my best all time? No. Would I recommend this to almost everyone if you want a cozy read that everything works out for the best in the end? Yes. Would I recommend this to those same people? Probably not. This one is a smart, big book about climate change and speculative fiction and the ways the world is changing regarding AI and all that stuff. 2 very different books, both 5 stars. What does it mean? Or do either of those measure up to Motherhood by Sheila Heti, which is my favorite book of all time and one that I think everyone should read, particularly those who have ever thought hard about what it means to be an artist, what it means to be a person, what it means to be a mother or a parent in any way, and whether or not to have a child. I don't think these 3 books are all on the same level, but they all got 5 stars from me. So in my mind, 5 stars means nothing. So what I've done is I've devised my own star rating system based on 39 stars. Welcome to Tim Blackett Reads, where I, Tim Blackett, talk about the books that I'm reading. Valencia and Valentine is about 2 main characters juxtaposed against each other. The points of view go back and forth from a young woman who is a germaphobe, who is very anxious, who is OCD, and just overall scared of the world. She is even afraid to talk to her coworkers. She knows no one at work until all of a sudden this one man comes and she is taken with him, and he is kind to her in a way that other people aren't. Mrs. Valentine is an elderly woman living in a home all by herself. She is lonely and she is eccentric, and she is trying to figure out how to live her life at the end of her days after the loss of her husband and the loss of most of her friends. And she gets through life as a lonely person by talking to other people, namely, for the book, the younger woman who comes into her house to clean her apartment. They both live extraordinary lives, not extraordinary in that they're changing the world or saving the world or anything like that, but extraordinary in that they are different than most people. For Valencia, we get to see her story of how she sort of learns to grow and accept other people and let people into her life who otherwise she would not let in. And for Valentine, we get to see how she walks through the world as a grieving widow and making the most out of the last days of her life. For this book, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars for plot, because I was engaged in the plot throughout. I was interested in what was happening in both stories, and then at the end, the ways they intertwine and meet each other surprised me. I didn't guess the twist until it was right on top of me at the end, and I like that. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars for characters because both of the main characters were intriguing and I wanted to be spending time with them. When I was in Valencia's bits and it switched over to Mrs. Valentine, I was like, oh, I wanted to spend more time with Valencia. And then I got into Mrs. Valentine's bits, and by the time her turn was up, I was like, oh, but come on, I want to see what's happening. Mrs. Valentine is telling stories. You don't know if they're true or not true, but she's excited to tell them, and so are you. So it turns out that Mrs. Valentine is telling stories within stories that are just as intriguing as the overall story. Like, I had a blast. I gave the book 6 out of 7 stars for style, based on those same reasons. The way that I was entrapped in both stories and the way they intertwine and the way the twist just turns when you least expect it or whatever, and the things that I thought were happening actually weren't happening, and then things that I never expected were there. And so again, 6 out of 7. To get a 7, I've only given one book 7 out of 7 stars for style, and that is Little Weirds by Jenny Slate, and that is because I felt like she was able to sort of create her own style for that book, that it was sort of nothing like anything I had read up until that point. So this is perfection when it comes to style, but not quite inventing a new style. So 6 out of 7 stars for style. Then there's pacing. For this, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars for pacing as well. Pacing is just what it means. Is the book speedily enough? Am I engaged enough throughout that I am continuously wanting to go through? And this was a near perfect book in that every time it changed from chapter to chapter, I was interested in what's going on next. There was just maybe lulls here and there. For whatever reason, I'm not willing to give it a 5 for that reason. So 4 out of 5 stars for pacing. Next, I gave it 5 out of 5 for engagement. Engagement is not just am I wrapped up in the story and turning pages and trying to get to the end, but how much am I engaged with my mind? Is it presenting questions to me that I might not otherwise have asked? Is it presenting new ways that a human might walk through the world? Is it giving me questions to ask myself about what it means to be a person, what it means to be good, what would I be doing in these situations? And for that, because of the characters being so interesting and eccentric both, I had so much to think about and worry about and different things throughout the book. So 5 out of 5 for engagement. The next category is mystery. And this is a category I made up because there are just some books in which I don't know why I loved them. When I'm trying to explain why I love it so much, it's hard to do so, but there's just something about a book that makes me love it. And I feel like every book I have, there's reasons why I like them that I can't explain, or reasons why I don't like them that I can't explain. Like, for instance, Motherhood, on the surface of things, seems like how is this an interesting book? It's about a 38-year-old woman trying to decide if she should have a child. But then everything else mixed in it, all the big ideas and the thoughtfulness of the novel, I give this 7 out of 7, no doubt about it. With Valencia and Valentine, I would say it's about a 5, because I loved the book, and as you can see, it's getting very high stars on all of the categories, but I feel like I can explain why I like the book. I liked it because the characters are so fascinating. I liked it because the plot was so intriguing and the twist and all of that, like I've said. And so it gets a 5 out of 7 for mystery. And the last category is the resolution. How does the book wrap up? Am I happy with the ending? To me, a good ending is an inevitable ending. That means it is not necessarily happy. It is not necessarily sad. It is not necessarily anything. It only has to feel inevitable within the book. That means there are no other endings that I sort of pieced together that I think might have been better. That once the ending is there in front of me, I'm like, yes, of course, this is how it ends. And with this is 5 out of 5 stars for sure. Like I said, the twist was just surprising. But then once it was there, you were like, oh my God, of course that is what's happening. And I just love that in a book. So 5 out of 5 stars for resolution. So there you have it. As you can see, I gave it 34 out of 39 stars, and that means a whole lot more to me than a 5-star rating. Push all the buttons on the side or down there. It helps me out a lot. And never forget, I wrote my own book. It's called Grandview Drive, and you should grab it.